Hello and welcome back to the OnlyAccies podcast. Today Brandon and I are back in the G4 podcast studio in Wishaw. As always, link in the description if you want to start your own podcast or take yours to the next level.
And get him some commission.
And get me some commission, please. But Brandon, first of all, before we go into football, how are you and how are you finding the first few weeks of the new season?
I know, listen, it's been weirdly positive despite not being the best of results. I think what we'll go on to talk about today, there has been a lot of signs for fans to be positive about in the initial stages. We know it's going to be a bit of a transition once again, starting another season with a new manager, but a lot of things have happened in the past couple of weeks. Look to be brewing to happen as well, that gives us probably things to be excited about. So no, I've not got much things about the start of the season so far to be, which usually the start of the season, usually we don't start seasons very well and we're usually sort of shouting and the boos are out already. But no, listen, I think there's a lot to be positive about and long may it continue.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things to be positive about was announced before we played Morton, the first home game of the season. That was, of course, the return of Ronnie McDonald. He left the club, handed the reins over to Colin McGowan. We all know how that went. We did a whole podcast on it. But he's back. He is back as chairman. They're keeping the CEO. They're keeping the same boards, football board and a commercial board. But Ronnie seems to be in charge of the club. He is the overseer, so to speak. Very positive news, though. We'll go in to talk about why it may be negative for the reasons he's coming back to the club, but having Ronnie back at the club is an overly positive thing, I would say.
Listen, I think some of the sort of stories you've heard from the sort of times he was in and around the club, you can't understate the things in which he done for the club. What when he took over, the sort of things in which he achieved and took the club to certain levels, which lots of people that before our lifetimes hadn't seen in their lifetimes. So he clearly he's very much a football person. Clearly, him and the sort of board of the football board in which he made sort of done things for Accies which probably don't get appreciated as much as they should. But having him back on board and having him have a more say in the day-to-day football things, I can't see any negative about that whatsoever. Like we'll probably talk on, there's probably negatives about why he's came back on. I wouldn't say that he's always definitely been gone. I think the past few years he definitely was taking a back seat and he wasn't getting involved as much. I think last season, after the Thistle, he just, for what I've heard of other people, that was his last game that they saw him at, was the Thistle 6-1. He obviously just thought, you know what, I've took a back seat, I'm not involved in this and I'm watching this, and he couldn't take it, which a lot of us couldn't take watching it. I swear, if that's your sort of baby, which it is to us fans, that's what he sort of, that was his baby. He sort of, what I'm trying to say, he sort of moulded Accies to have a certain mentality, to play a certain style of play. He got us to levels which he wouldn't have liked seeing being sort of tarnished, if you want to will. So, no, I think it's very good news that he's back. And we're already seeing sort of, which we'll go on to talk on later in the podcast, that we're already seeing perhaps changes happening, which is maybe his influence for all we know, because there's not been much say before he came back, and as soon as he comes back, we're getting hit out with all different types of news. So no, I'm very, very pleased that he's back in, and they made it clear that he'll be heavily involved in the day-to-day football, and I think that's key. He got Accies to the Premier League. Obviously, he's not been happy seeing the sort of
where we fell
to, where we're going in such a short period of time, which, I don't know what your thoughts are on the whole thing, but I think it can only be positive, surely. Yep,
listen, I echo everything you've said. It's brilliant to see Ronnie back, and I do also agree, which, as you said, we'll talk about later on, that as soon as he does come back, wheels seem to be in motion a little bit with some stuff. But what worries me, and what I saw kind of a lot on Twitter when he was announced, was why has he came back? We know why he left, and it was rumoured why he left, the poor performances, what was happening behind the scenes perhaps, there was some fallouts, whatever it may be, and now he's back. But what worries me is we all know the club are no great financially, and Colin McGowan's not hid away from telling us that fact, and he needs to raise money to keep the club afloat, etc., etc. And what that tells me is Ronnie's maybe went away, seen what's happened since he's left and how far the club's fallen. He's obviously taken his Cullen sponsorship away, so that stripped away a large bit of money for the club too, and he's seen the kind of dire situation the club's maybe in financially or behind the scenes, and he's thought, I can't let that be fucked up, because that's my legacy. That, you know, as you said, that's, he built the club basically from nothing to something, and or from low levels in Scotland to the Premiership, gave us some of the best years of our lives, and he doesn't want that then to be tarnished for if the club falls into financial despair or whatever it may be. So I have a feeling he's maybe came back and said, right, I need to clean some mess up, and as you said, wheels are now in motion. It seems as if stuff is happening, and having him back in the day-to-day football life is positive for me, very, very positive.
I think what he's probably seen it as he'll probably see his tail. I think he's 71, so he's not a young chap.
Ronnie's listening to this going, right guys, come on, I'm not that bold.
In all seriousness, when you're that age, I think the majority are expecting to be lying a beach somewhere, just feet up, just chilling out. He's left Accies, obviously, at his retirement age. He's obviously wanting to have his feet up. He's obviously probably felt, right, I've created and I've sort of built the foundations of this club, and I've built them to a certain level, and I've left them with a certain foundation and certain things behind the scenes where I feel that there can't be much room for a massive downward spiral. Since he's left, we've saw what's happened. It has been massive downward spiral. It sort of went a wee bit out of control with certain things happening sort of on the park, off the park. Like, we're constantly told about the financial aspect of it. We don't know the ins and outs of that. But no, listen, both Ronnie's obviously going to be part of the football side of things. We've been told that there's two separate boards where we'll have a board that are bringing in the commercial side of things. They'll be working behind the scenes doing all the commercial things, so that's great. And we're going to have the football people, which is a football board, and they're going to, as we're told, what they want to do is get Accies back to where they feel they belong. And I truly do feel that's where Ronnie does feel where we belong. He's built us up from lower leagues to being in there for vast majority of the past 20 years. We've been there, what was it, 10 out of 14 seats?
Something like the round about 10 out of 15.
So we've more than 60-70% of the last 20 years we've been in the top flight. He obviously feels, I've got us there. I want to make sure that we've got a platform for them to constantly, whether it's a yo-yo going in and out, but I want to make sure that the foundations are there so they don't downward spiral. He's came back in. Hopefully he's going to have much more of a say. He's obviously seen people like, for instance, we've got Rankin in. He might think he's still right. We've got a manager in Rankin. The standard of this league isn't particularly the best. I know that if I have a more of a say in the football side of things, I can easily get my football club back to the top flight, because, like we constantly go about, the division MD can be MD, and it only requires maybe a wee small bit of investment and a bit of savviness in order to get up. And I think we do have things in place which can get us there. And it's just about getting the wheels in motion, which certainly seems to be happening over the past week or so. Just
quickly before we finish, just literally as you were speaking there, kind of an idea came to me. I want to throw it out to you, see what you think. Do you think there's another reason is maybe because obviously we know that I'm getting a phone call from Daventry in England. That's a good laugh, isn't it? He's no longer in Cullen. He's handed that over to his children, so he's retired officially from that. So do you think there's maybe a part of it that he's retired, he's gave up the football club, he's gave up his company, and he is sitting at home, his feet up, and thinking, a bit bored now, he could probably do something. Opportunities there is in Accies maybe came back. It's just throwing another idea out there that
when you're so heavily involved in something, I think I know he's obviously been involved in football for probably mine and your lifetimes added together.
Easily, easily.
I mean? So regardless,
not easily. I shouldn't. Sorry, Ronnie, that makes you sound really old. But
regardless of your age or whatnot, you're never going to lose that sort of passion and love for something which is such a massive part of your life. So it could be the case. He's get rid of, not get rid of Cullen. He's gave it to his David, his children, and he's sitting there and he's just watching sort of things unfold, and he's like, you know what, I'm bored. I want to get back involved in this. I know what I can do, and I don't like seeing what's. I don't know if he doesn't like seeing what's happened, but like people in a group chat, man, mentioned about how he's back and he's been kicking arses. I don't know like anything behind that or anything like that. Whose arses he's been kicking, but he's obviously had a hunger to get back involved, and he saw an opportunity arise where he can maybe see where he can get Accies back to, and hopefully that's what's happened. And we'll see what happens in the season coming.
Yep, I hope, as you said, he has a big impact, and we'll talk about a little bit more later on about the impact he's maybe already has. But before we go on to talk about the Morton game, there was something that happened before the Morton game.
Test. Is this working? Is the mic on?
We're cooking with gas. We hosted
just making sure the mic was on when you said that there.
We hosted a live Q&A with Mark McLaughlin before the game, club legend Mark McLaughlin, and you may have seen online I posted a quick apology for it because it was a fucking shambles, right? Let's just be honest here. So we do apologise to that. It's not our fault, unfortunately. It's one of those things that was out with our control. Technical difficulties coming out of our ears, and it wasn't good.
And a streaker as well.
It wasn't good. Let's just hold my hands up to that. It wasn't good, and we apologise for that. We have spoke to Mark McLaughlin. He's happy to come up to the studio at a later date, and we'll get a proper interview done with him sitting down in one of the studios.
It's just we had high hopes for it, and I think that's usually when anybody does have high hopes for Accies. Usually
we let them down.
We either get let down or we let them down. So no, I think it's a wee bit out with the club's control. They said they tested it. They had an event on the night before and everything was working fine. Typically when we go to do it, and a great crowd were in, and
thank you for everybody for coming
along. I'm sure the club, I put a thank you out there as well for people coming and getting involved and being at the bar and whatnot, and hopefully if we do one in the future we will make sure that we're there a bit earlier and doing our tests and whatnot. But it does show that, I think I saw someone's comment, it does show that the
appetite's there for it, absolutely
there, and the sort of idea would be a good one. So hopefully it's something we can do in the future, and we have no streakers or technical difficulties.
Fingers crossed. But let's talk about the first game of the season then, against Morton, and arguably the worst refereeing performance I'll ever see in my life. I'll just throw it out there right from the start. I think that's what I titled the video. Wow.
Listen,
wow, by the way, we could sit here all day and talk about the refereeing performance.
I'm not one of these people that like to criticise, like overly criticise refs or even criticise them to a level, because I feel that it seems like you're just trying to make excuses.
Yeah.
But I've said this to people that weren't at the game, and like my dad and whatnot, that wow.
I mean, let's run through some of the decisions. So I suppose the big one is 30 seconds in, Sean Want's tackle. Now that could easily be a red card for Sean Want. That's against us, right? So I've had a few Morton fans tweet me that and comment in the video about that as well. So I would say, looking at it back, that's first wrong decision. Now, first game of the season, 30 seconds in, he's probably thinking, I can't fucking send somebody off. But I think any other time of the season, that's a red card.
That's control is lost of the game 30 seconds in.
Completely. So they've got Sean Want's red card straight off the bat. The second one is also Sean Want. Ball over the top, Sean Want's chasing it, clears it, the ball off the defender's face. It goes out, the keeper grabs it,
goes down 25-30 yards out.
5 yards, 6 yards out the box, dives Tom Daly style into the box, and he gets given a penalty. Now, when you look back at the replays, Accies fans have shared it all over Twitter and that as well, you can see when the tackle is made, A, he doesn't touch the player, he touches the ball, it hits off his face, and B, he's at least 5 yards outside the box. So that's decision number 2, and it's horrendous. And of course ended up costing Accies 3 points, could be. We'll talk a bit more about that later on, but we were 1-0 up at the time, and obviously that happens and Sean Wont gets sent off. So, I mean, talk to us about that. At the game, did you think that was a penalty? Did you think it was the right decision? Did you watch any replays to see?
At the game, from where we were, and this is probably my only sort of bit where I'll let the referee off lightly, is where I was from. It does look like he comes through the back and take him out. And this is where I'm saying I'll give the I'll give the referee some credit. In actual fact, no, I will not give him credit because he's nearly up at section A when the challenge happens.
That's true, he's a long way away.
The referee's nowhere near the play, so if he's that far behind the play and he's only seen it from behind, it does look like Sean once came from behind and sort of cut him out. But when you're a referee, you should have good eyesight.
Yeah, he's got the linesman on the side as well. He should be helping him.
He should be helping him. Who the linesman, who we'll talk about in a minute, doesn't help him out for another few things. But no, listen, it's not a penalty. It's not a foul. It's out the box, and it's a game-changing decision because one, we get Sean once sent off, who Morton fans are arguing that could have been sent off earlier in the game. And then they also get a penalty from it, which they subsequently score from. So right before half time. So it's just massively stupid decision. Sorry. And there was other decisions in the first half. I can't remember the exact amount of bookings in which were given.
I think there was 9 bookings in the game, which first game of the season is mental.
Mad. And I think someone on Twitter sort of mentioned his sort of refereeing card stats, and that's about a average of what he tend to give. So he's clearly someone that I put his name into Twitter. I never saw anything about him, so it says to me that he's not really had much championship level. Well, I think there was a few games in which he had, but nothing. There was
an Accies, so he refereed an Inverness game last year and sent off Dodds, the Inverness manager, so that was something. But there was an Accies fan who commented saying that he went to see like Peterhead or something in League 2, and this Ronco guy was a referee in there, and he had a shambles in League 2 as well. So how he's up at the Championship, I've got no idea.
I think, obviously, the club, I think a lot of fans put it to the club that they should be making a complaint. I think I heard someone say the club didn't make a complaint, and I heard someone also mention that he's already under inquiry from another club about an active complaint. Mentioned Dodds getting sent off. We've then got to half time, one each man down. Ranks obviously goes on to the park. I watched the full thing because I was wary what was going to happen. He doesn't aggressively go into the park. He walks onto the park. He keeps his distance from the ref. He's quite some distance, probably about the distance of which was given outside the box for the penalty away from the ref. And as soon as he gets that distance to the ref and stops, as if he looks he's about to sort of create conversation, the ref just puts the red card up straight away. He's not having any of the conversation. Ranks turns away, walks away, and that's it. I've saw arguments saying if we had an assistant manager, somebody could have stopped him, but I personally don't think Ranks has done anything bad. You've got every right to question the referee and speak to them about decisions. Perhaps going on the park is maybe what's enticed the referee to send them off, but to me, it didn't look like an aggressive manner. It looked like he was just questioning the decisions and whatnot, which he was quite rightly doing. And we then go into the second half. And
just before we move on, just on the Ranks getting sent off, we asked him about it in press afterwards, and he held his hands up and said, "I did swear, or I used profanity," was his press words. "I used profanity," but he said, "I wasn't aggressive, I didn't abuse him, I didn't say anything about this, I just basically was like, how the fuck are you giving that as a challenge?" You know, he did swear, but not at the referee or was abusive at all. He did say that it was a mistake on his part. He held his hands up for it. He's obviously now done that 1 game suspension against Partick Thistle. But I saw somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who, maybe it was Jose Santana, saying that it maybe showed a little bit of inexperience on his part. You really shouldn't be going on at half time. You know, we see it all the time. Whenever a manager does go and speak to the ref at half time on the pitch, they usually get booked or something. So it may be a little bit of inexperience his part. As you said, if he had an assistant, they maybe could have discussed it beforehand rather than going on. So I do think it is a mistake on his part.
He's held his hand up. No. Do you know what I mean? He's admitted he's at fault. He should maybe not encroach the pitch and maybe should wait till the referees came off it. But he's held his hands up. Every right to use profanity against that knob, I'm going to call it. Because
I heard worse playing refereeing a football match surely than saying what the fuck was that, ref?
Come on. It was an outrageous sort of game. And in the second half, it just continues the really poor decisions. I think the 2 penalty shouts we had. One's clear, one is clear as day. Like, Rangers get done with sort of one last week, which was probably 100 times less of a penalty than the one that we given.
Yep.
We've hit the shot from a good few yards away from where the player is. The player's got his hands
Horns
up there as if he's in YMCA.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like a slanty YMCA. But
I likened it to, do you mind Suarez for Uruguay when he was on the line?
Mm-hmm.
One of them, bang! That's what he was like.
See, the thing that really I didn't understand about it all, both the referee and the linesman stop.
Yeah.
As if, like, give it. Like, look, waiting for the other one to give the penalty, and then them give it, and then the ball trickles out, and because they've stopped and looking at each other waiting for it to be given, they've just thought, well, none of us are going to admit to it, so corner.
So that infuriated me. The angle I'm sitting at, I sit kind of centre stand, and the angle we were at, it probably couldn't be as clear unless we were on the pitch from what happened. As you said, hands up next to the head. But the one that infuriates me the most is the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper has the ball in his hands. He throws it up, and all goalkeepers do this, by the way. They take a step outside the box and kick it. Every goalkeeper does it. It never gets called for anything. But the keeper does that. He throws it up to kick it, and he's outside the box. He then catches the ball again, and the referee gives a free kick to Morton. Like, and I sit next to Rory, and he used to ref or does ref or whatever, and he was telling me the rule is quite literally, if that happens, it's either an indirect free kick outside the box, a penalty if it's inside the box, and a sending off to the goalkeeper. But instead, he gives a free kick to the goalkeeper. Like, and it's not even as if, what annoyed me was, if an Accies player had ran in front of him and get in his way like they do with quick free kicks and stuff like that, then fair enough that it's the Accies player is engrossing on the player. But there's nobody around him. He just throws it up and catches it, and then he gets a free kick. And I remember going nuts in the stand, and it's in the video, and I'm going, how is this possible? And as you said, after that, control was lost for the first 30 seconds, but it just goes from worse to worse. You've got the Morton dugout running onto the pitch because of a tackle that happened. It didn't even look bad to me from where I was sitting, right behind the dugouts. They're running onto the pitch demanding it. All the goalkeepers from either side are up at the edge. Everybody's lost control, and you can see the fans' feelings at the end of the game when the referee's walking off and he's getting a horde of boos.
Listen, I know we probably went and talked about 10 minutes there for that referee solid, but it's that bad a performance. It's the worst performance I've saw in person in my full life, and I've been going to football since I can remember, like since I could walk. Do you know what I mean? So it's something which we had to talk about. The actual performance itself, we went down to 10 men quite early on, about 40 minutes in, which gives us like a sort of uphill task on its own. I felt we played better with 10 men. The thing I was really sort of happy about was the fight and the dig that we had into the game. I think we could have, if you were picking a team to win the game, I think it would have been, we were the team that probably deserved to win out AMD. If a draw was probably a fair result, if MD was to win, I'd probably say it was us. But the sort of fight and the dig that all the players put in, every player ran themselves into the ground. You had Andy Winter at the last minute
dragging back 30 yards,
just non-stop running. Every player was the exact same, and that was the best thing to see, because it's rest assured that last season we wouldn't have came away with a point there. We would have definitely have crumbled after we conceded the first goal, and come into the second half, Morton would have went and got the winner. But no, I think we held our own really well with 10 men. We dug in deep, and we got a well and truly earned point, which under the circumstances and the fact we're up against our ref and his colleagues that were not doing any favours whatsoever for us, it was a good point with all things considered. Yep,
Dave, I completely agree with that. As you said, I won't go over it again, but the heart and the fight and the team is exactly kind of what you expect from an Accies team. And as you said, I think we played better with the 10 men. We held strong. They were tough to break down, but we also, up the other end, were creating chances. And as you said, arguably could have won it, if not should have won it.
I think after the game, I was at the races. That's why I was all suited and booted.
All suited and booted, mate?
Yes. No, that was for Marco, as everybody kept saying. But no, we're at the races and all the players were there. The full squad was there. Me and a lot of my friends we were sort of mingling, if you want to call it that, in with them and sort of getting drinks, etc. And no, it was something that I think probably done well for both the players and the fans. That everybody was sort of mingling, having a good laugh together and talking about the sort of where we want to be this season in comparison to, and the reasons perhaps why we weren't sort of where we wanted to be last season.
Can I just ask on that? So I wasn't at the races, right, but I was getting updates from it, and you know, as you said, everybody was mingling together. Do you think that just shows that there really is some positivity around the club at the moment? Because last season, end of last season, midway through last season, whatever it may
Zero
be,
engagement. Like
if you were both at the races, you would have avoided each other.
Aye, 100%.
But as you said, there is a bit of positivity now. So you get there and the players are going, "Hey boys, come on in, blah, blah." You're getting photos with folk and videos with folk and all that. So do you think that just shows that there is positivity around it?
100%. Like, it was like some of the conversations which the players were actually bringing up to the fans were sort of difficult conversations, but they were bringing it up so that like fans sort of could understand certain things about last season. But it was not everybody was having a laugh. I think I've showed you a picture. I'll show it.
We'll put it up.
We'll put the picture up. I've only got the camera a bit, but you can put the picture up. Everybody was having a good laugh with each other. Fans were buying players drinks. Drinks were buying fans drink. Players were buying fans drinks, and it was a good evening. And like you said, it shows that there does seem to be a bit of a connection now, and players are putting 100%. They're fighting for the cause, and fans can see that. You're seeing the sort of comments on social media after games and even between games where there's not that constant negative burden which we've been so used to the past few seasons. So, and I don't want to sort of tempt fate because that is only 2 games in, do you know what I mean? But there does seem to be a bit of a connection between fans and players and aspects of the club and fans as well. So I think we're on a good road, and it's important that we stay on that. Obviously, fans majority care about performances and results. It's a results-based game, but there's a lot of positivity around a lot of aspects now, and it's important that we keep that up.
One of the positives we saw after the Morton game was the Accies Academy. Now, we make jokes about hearing a lot about the Accies Academy, but jokes aside, it is good to see them do well, and of course they beat Rangers, the Academy team, so well done to them.
I think
great result.
They were 2-1. They went 1-0 up, then they went 2-1 down at half time, and they've obviously came back and won 3-2. So,
and you've got folk like Ronnie playing, who obviously has been in and out the first team. I think you had Spence, the young right back. He played in pre-season as well. So these
Black, who scored at New Main, scored a couple of them, I'm sure, and he scored a double. Which it's good to see. I know we always have the joke about the sort of elite youth academy, no, because it's sometimes forced down people's throats, and we have a good laugh at it. But no, it is. You love to see sort of stuff like that. It's really refreshing to see that your academy is going and beating what are seen to be the best team or one of the best teams in the country, and it's promising to see, and it does show that if you keep embedding them in the manner in which we should be and giving them a sort of platform when they're ready, that it'll be bright for the future. Yep,
definitely. And I feel weird going from positive story to positive story, but after that, before we talk about Partick Thistle, there was some news
out of nowhere.
The day of Partick Thistle,
completely.
I'm sitting getting ready to go to the game and getting my shoes on. Next thing you know, a signing on before the game. I was like, what is this? So we sign. Would you like to say the name? I think you have a lot of fun saying it.
Well, I don't know how I pronounced it because I was very rough at that point. I wasn't going to the game, and I read it. I'm like, right, okay, but I've obviously since I've been told it's pronounced Teehee.
Jean-Pierre
Teehee, or Teehee, as the fans were singing. But
and you have a thought about that chant, don't you?
Outrageously bad, but it's going to stick. Let's be honest. So it's that's going to be the new sort of chant of the season by the sounds of things.
20-year-old striker on loan from Fulham. Now I've seen a few people saying, he's on loan, he's only played like 10 minutes in 2 years, but he has been playing under 21s football, played consistently. He's played in the Premier League 2, which we've had mixed bag with previously, but He looks a big physical player, and I remember when he was warming up before the game, I'm sitting with a few fans, and they went, "Fucking hell! Look at the size of him!" And you look at, and he has a unit. He has an absolute unit.
That's the word which I've heard thrown about. Sorry, everywhere is a unit. When I saw that he signed, and it was right before the start of the game, which, let's be honest, we're usually, like we've been told at the start of this week, or we're expecting 3 players in, and you wait a week and nothing usually comes. To be a player just to come out of nowhere is not usually the way in which it happens with Accies. So,
well, I heard there'd been a rumour or something they'd seen him in training.
It was like literally a day before and signed, which there's been rumours floating about maybe another strikers, maybe Andy Ryan's injured for a long period, so that's why
he was on the bench. We'll talk about that in a minute.
So, but no, when he first signed, I had an image of him which was completely the opposite of what he turned out to be. Saw a video compilation which you never take for gospel, because there was a positive one about Richard Roy as well. But no, listen, his record is decent. Like, I know it's not at first team level, it's at under 23s, under 18, but he scores a goal every 2 point something games, which is really decent, let's be honest, for a striker. You're not going to get much better than that unless they're world class. So no, he's got all the attributes of what we need. I know he's a young striker and it's only on loan, but let's be honest, we needed a striker in. It's not to say we're not looking elsewhere for another player, for all we know. But no, listen, I think he'll be a positive signing. I just hope that he doesn't get as much criticism as our last big striker.
See, you make an interesting point, and I want to come back to it later on, about it doesn't mean that we're not going to sign another forward player. I'll go into that in a minute. But he comes on for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe, maybe not as much as that, and not a huge amount to do in the game because we are kind of sitting back at that point. Exactly. So, but 2 or 3 little snippets of him kind of going forward, a quick turn, getting a shot away, some link-up play with Lewis Smith.
Looks good with his feet, for being a big guy, which is, that's what I picked out most about at the game and in his compilation video. For a big guy, he's good with his feet, which is very few and far between. He needs to throw himself about, which he will clearly. He's a unit, as he keeps getting quoted. So, no, listen, I think we've probably got him on loan, and we're probably playing a very minuscule part of his wages, which benefits all parties. And no, listen, I don't think there's much room for complaints with this signing. I don't see how you can complain about it that much. Yep,
not me neither. I'm very happy with it. Now, on to the game itself. Now, it starts pretty boring, let's say. I mean, literally just before the goal, which we will talk about, one of the fans turned to me and said the highlights reel for this video is going to be the highlights video for this game is going to be 30 seconds long, because there really wasn't anything to it. And then we get maybe the most comical goal you'll see all season. Partick keeper comes out, goes to clear the ball, boots it off his own defender's face, and it rebounds about 30 yards back into the net. I mean, I remember sitting watching that going, I cannot believe we're going into this 1-0 up at half time, and it being that type of goal that does it.
If I'm being honest with you, I was watching and I saw the ball go back and I've turned away, and next thing everybody around me is jumping about. I don't know what I was caught up on. I think I was because the match was that poor and it was that boring, I was enjoying myself watching our fans do their fans bicker, because it was quite comical, it was hilarious, but I didn't see it. I've obviously saw it everywhere over social media now. It's hilarious, and I think I came up to you at half time and mentioned that I don't know how we're winning this, because although there wasn't a lot in the game, Thistle dominated, let's be honest. They were by far the better team. They're in a high. They're the team that I've said to you I've predicted to win the league, which I still stick with. And we continued to put fight in, and at half time we went in 1-0, which was unbelievable. We went from a comical goal to something else at half time, which I don't know what it was, but it kept us entertained.
I looked this up, right, because I genuinely was interested at what it was. Now, if anybody's not seen the video, you can see it in our match reaction, the halftime show, halftime entertainment. It's about 10 folk in lab coats with big nets, and somebody dressed as a fly, and they were like throwing beach balls into the crowd and getting the crowd to like throw them back like into the nets, and then they brought out a giant beach ball and they played the Match of the Day theme tune. And I remember sitting watching it, and everybody around me was going, what are we watching? Like, see if it made sense. I could at least go, I see what they're doing here. But I was sitting watching it going, I actually don't get it. No, I don't get what they're trying to do. It was mental.
I've not, I saw the sort of name of them and what they're attempting to do, and if it's a charity and they're trying to fair enough, but I didn't get it either. Like, it was just a big fly with scientists with the crazy scientists trying to catch boys. And I just listen, it was I had a hard night the night before. It was my work leaving doing. I didn't know if I was coming or going when I was watching that, but it kept us in good spirits. Which let's go into the second half.
Back to the game. As you said, Thistle did dominate, but I do think we showed a similar type of performance against Morton. Now, we weren't down to 10 men, but because they dominated, they did. Now, previously, I'll say this. Previously, and Rankin said it when we interviewed him, when we were 1-0 up, we were happy to win 1-0, and he said that frustrated him. He wants to win 2, 3, etc, etc. Now, I think we saw a little bit of that in that game, where we went 1-0 up, and even though we were back to the wall at times because Thistle were dominating, we were still trying to get forward and still try to attack and still try to create chances, which we didn't do last season. We were sitting back at the 1-0, accepting the pressure, booting it along, and then accepting the ball coming back. But it was different.
I think it's easy enough for managers to say that sort of line where we have, let's be honest, we've heard it time and time again, where I don't want to win 1-0. If we're 1-0 up, we're used to sort of just holding out the win and hoping we win 1-0. It's easy enough for managers to say that. Circumstantially, I think the past 2 games have been very hard for us to go and do that. We've been doing it to 10 men, so it was hard for us. We've conceded a penalty straight away. We've conceded a penalty. We've been down to 10 men. It's hard for us to go and sort of expand or actually win the game, so it's been hard. And then the Thistle game, we're probably playing the best team in the league, or one of the 2 best teams in the league, away from home. So it's going to be hard for us, especially when we've not got a fully strength first team out as well. So we had to sort of change the setup in which we were playing. But like you said, we've went in the second half, and although we were backs to walls, Thistle were putting pressure on. It's not as if when the pressure was coming, we're just getting the ball lumping up the park and then letting them put the pressure straight back on us. We're getting the ball, we're trying to win it, we're trying to drive at them. Steve Lawson's getting the ball, Scott Martin's getting it. They're driving at them, they're trying to go into areas which we've not got very many up top because we're playing a different system, so it's hard for us to get that second goal, but it wasn't through any lack of trying. I think the players once again dug in deep. Like the Thistle goal was coming, there's no point lying about it. It was, in my opinion, it was just when rather than if, do you know what I mean? But they dug in deep, and fair play to them. Point away from home to Thistle was a decent point, and under the circumstances again, a very decent point.
What I'll say is, and this is going to sound very, very technical, right? Very tactical. So Mimno was sitting in the holding, and then you had Lawson and Martin just ahead of them. Now usually that 3 interchange, and sometimes Lawson sits deep and lets Mimno get forward to play some passes. But what I found worked really well was when the long ball did go up to Winter, I felt a wee bit sorry for Winter at times because he was getting long balls that he was never winning. But when he did go up, when the long balls did go up, and he was missing them, he was putting pressure on the defender to have to play it, and either have to try and play it backwards towards the keeper or going forwards. But what was happening was Lawson and Martin were pushing from the midfield so that if the ball did drop, they were there for the seconds, and if the ball did go behind towards the keeper, which is where the goal came from, long ball up, Winter's never heading it, the defender tries to head it back towards the keeper, but you've got Martin putting the pressure on, forces him to play it. Now, obviously, the goal's a fluke goal. I can't put that down to any tactical masterclasses, but just having Lawson and Martin push up to win any second balls that drop is a big difference. Because previously, if that header went up and Winter wouldn't have won the header, those 3 midfielders are stepping back to step back in to defend. But instead, we've got them pushing high to try and win it up. And I think that's us starting to see little bits of what Rankin wants in his team coming in slowly. Now listen, it's going to take time. He said this as well. It's not as if he's going to come in and go, right, this is how we're playing, that's how we play from now on. It's going to take time, but I think in the first 2 games we are seeing snippets of little bits that he's working on and little things he's trying to change.
And I think, like you said, it'll take time. And
I feel like Gary Neville doing that. Sorry.
No, fair enough.
Neville and Carragher.
Your technical side there. So I think it will take time. And listen, he's obviously mentioned to us that he wants to bring in players to sort of improve the team, and I think with that happening as well, we'll be able to embed his style a bit more as well. But I think the first 2 games, I think we've got 2 points out of them. We're undefeated. Circumstantially, I don't think you can. I keep saying circumstantially, but it's
you're not wrong though, because
it's 2 points which, under the circumstances, are good, is a good point in each game. Do you know what I mean? Which I mentioned to a few people. I'm 100% certain those 2 games we would not have got a point out of last season.
I completely agree.
Like, especially at the stage of the season. See, if that was the start of the season last season, there's not hope in hell. Given how the matches went and both sides were up against it, we would have came out of there with 2 points, and I think that shows progress in my opinion. And no, I don't think there's much scope and much room to sort of criticise the first 2 games, and I think we just need to build on that, and hopefully we have players back, and maybe we have a few new players coming into their game which should benefit us.
Very good segue. That leads us on to the next article that came out, which was Rankin saying that he expects, or he wants, at least 3 players in. Now, it was said before we play Ayr on Saturday. Now, do I see 3 players coming in before Ayr? I'm going to say no. I'll be pleasantly surprised. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. But
this is only Tuesday.
It is. We're recording on Tuesday. I think, looking at it, I think we agree on this. So he's mentioned a defender, and he's mentioned a midfielder, and the other one he's kind of left vague, another player. An experienced player. Now, the defender is going to be Jamie Hamilton. That's my opinion on
100%.
it. We've had confirmation, I'll put that in quotation so I don't get in trouble, confirmation that Jamie Hamilton has signed the deal. So my expectation is that announcement is going to be Jamie Hamilton, which is fantastic news.
No, brilliant news. Listen, it's a player that we spoke about before, that so many times that we can't speak more highly of him.
He was our love child, wasn't he, on the podcast?
He was our love child at one point, and we touted him for X, Y and Z constantly, and we thought he could go to the top, and I still think he most certainly can go to the top. I felt last season, which we've mentioned, no player stood out last season. He had expectation on him to go to a certain level, as well as certain other players had expectation, but I think the expectation was a bit higher on him, because we expected him to go, like, be a massive standout, and he unfortunately wasn't. So listen, I think under Rankin and playing the right style of football and under the right manager, he can flourish and re-find that form which we know that he's capable of. It will take him a few weeks now because he's probably not fit, but no, it's a brilliant signing, and it adds depth to our defence, which we really need, and it will allow us to play players in their correct position, and it means that we've got, like I said, we've got depth. And no, I'm just really glad about it. It's a player that we speak about constantly, and it's it'll be good to see him back in the fold.
Just quickly on Jamie Hamilton before we move on to the other ones, I think it's a smart move for both parties. So obviously we get to keep Jamie Hamilton, who an academy graduate, so tick 8 on the team sheet. So we get to keep Jamie Hamilton. He's obviously not getting offers from clubs at a level that he expected to, so it gives him a chance to play in his correct position, hopefully in a good ranking team, put his name back on the kind of in the papers. And I expect, now I don't know this obviously for a fact, but I expect in his contract, because it's rumoured to be a 2-year deal, I expect they've said if a bid comes in, a good bid comes in either January or the summer, we will let you go. I think that's what I expect in his contract.
I expect with it will be in this is completely guesses. Do you know what I mean? This is in no way, shape or form anything that we've been told or know or anything like that. Like, it would make sense for the club to be saying, like, we want you here. We know the development fee we can get for you. Sign a 2-year deal with us. See if we can get to the the Premier League again. Failing that, if you refine your form, which we're more than sure you will under John Rankin, we'll accept a bid over that development fee for you. Do you know what I mean? And then it also means that if for one reason or another he doesn't refine that, and he doesn't get to the level in which we all think he will, the majority think he will, and he'll get refined that it means that we've got another 2 years on him, and it means that the development fee increases for us as well, should he run down that contract. But no, I think it works for all parties. He'll refine the form which we know he's got and know he's capable of, and I think he'll flourish in a John Rankin team.
The other one is a midfielder, and it's a position that we spoke about that we do still need to strengthen. And I would say we've got kind of 4 good midfielders. You've got Regan Mimno, Scott Martin, Steve Lawson, and Lewis Spence. But it does still need strengthened in that midfield. Let's not kid on. And one of the names getting thrown about is, you say his name's so much better than me. What's it? Oan Djorkaeff.
Djorkaeff.
You say it much better than me.
Used to be. He used to be with St Mirren. His dad was an absolute cracking player. Just when I was starting to get into football, so I vaguely remember him. But my dad's told me about him as well. But no, I played 2 games with St Mirren. St Mirren fan says he was a bit of a car crash.
He scored a cracker of a free kick, but
his dad was good at free kicks. But he did say he was a wee bit of a car crash. He played 2 games, got injured, and then he was never to be seen again. The highlight of his time was seeing his dad in the stands. So I don't know what that means. Listen, I'm not making any judgment on him.
He's been training with the club. We know that.
Like, you'd like to think if he has been training with the club, the club's had players in training with them that they've made a decision on, and they've, like, for instance, that striker at the start of the season, they're not just signing folk for the sake of it. If they've got players in training and they think that they're capable, then we need to go with the judgment of the manager and the people making the signings that they're good enough. There's no point in, as Rankin keeps saying, signing people just for the sake of it. Rankin's told us the positions that he wants to bring in. He thinks that Djorkaeff seems like a bit of more of an attacking mid. I think that's what Rankin said to us. That he wants a more attacking-esque sort of flair midfielder. And so that's one of the midfielders being tipped. There's no point in we don't know much about him. There's no point in going too much into him. The other player that we've mentioned is a midfielder, which I don't know if you would put it under the midfield bracket or you'd put it under the experience bracket. He's only 27, but Charlie Telfer.
He's been around the Scottish leagues for a long time, so you would class him as an experienced player.
But so that's the one where it's a bit. Is he the midfielder that is being touted? This is just going off of Pie and Bovril that he's been linked. So it's another player which I think even before he was linked, David's mentioned a few times.
David loves Charlie Telfer.
He's a good player. I know he was only at Falkirk last season and he's not had he get let go with Falkirk, but he's been about the leagues. He's played at a good standard. He's played with good teams. It's just been a wee bit unfortunate with injuries. So it's another player which, if he is one of them, then and he is fit, then fair enough. It's a good signing, and it's depth. Yep. Like, I think going with the Thistle game and the Morton game, the sort of overwhelming criticism, if anything, that fans had was, who've we got in the bench to come
completely.
off?
We made one sub that game and it was for T.
There's there's nobody on the bench going to come off the game. Like, for instance, if we're 1-0 up in Rankin saying we want to go and win it, we've not got anybody on the bench to go and do that. Do you know what I mean? Or we've not got anybody to bring on to sort of hold the lead. Yep. With us, other players can go and push.
And
for
if we do bring somebody on, it's 16-year-old Ryan Oney, it's Ellis Brown.
It's no fair bringing these young players on. We've obviously talked about the sort of academy results, and we've clearly got a good crop of youngsters there. But if they're not ready, you can't just force them on because we've not got enough squad depth, which we've been doing for far too long.
So Telfer is an experienced player. He's been in the Scottish leagues for a long time. I said he's still only 27, but you were talking about squad depth, and I completely agree. Realistically, is he going to come into the first team? Yes, at parts, but I think he is really there for squad depth. So we've got our options off the bench if need be. We can rotate the squad at times if need be.
And it's what we've mentioned, obviously, the sort of fine margins of where we want to finish in the league. I know we keep mentioning sort of the standard of the league and how everybody can beat everybody and whatnot. And if we're being honest, our first 11 probably is one of the strongest in the league. Our squad is probably one of the worst in the league because we don't have any depth, right? And that's no criticism of the younger players. It's just I don't find it fair to be having them coming off the bench when they're not ready at that standard. They're not ready to be forced in and sort of rushed. When if we can improve the squad, bring depth in, which is going to have influence on the first team, but also the bench as well, and it gives other players that fight, because there's too many players in that team now that are dead stick on to be in 11, which for their mentality, and like, it's a sort of a bit of a breeze for them, if you know what I mean. So we need to bring in squad players which are going to push the starting 11 players to go to the next level as well, which we ultimately need. And I think we touched on with Ronnie coming in, this is what sort of happened, and I do think that he's probably seen, you know what, the standard of the league isn't that good. If I bring in a few more players, or if I can influence the commercial board to invest money, and we can see this team back in the Premier League sooner than expected, which we're only going to do if we have squad depth, which Charlie Telford would be. Obviously that leaves another position or player which is the complete unknown. I think if we're going by experienced, it's unknown. I think only one shout's Effie Ambrose, which has been sort of quashed. We've
already had that.
We've had the discussion with Ranks and Maitland, who sort of made that, said that that's definitely not happening. No, but you never know. It might there's changing circumstances.
So this is what I said to you, was when we spoke to Rank, and he said he's just in training, we're not signing Effie Ambrose. When I spoke to Maitland at one of the games just briefly, he said, yeah, he's in training, but we're not signing Effie Ambrose. But as I said to you guys, that can change day to day.
He might be having a good say within the squad. They think, you know what, he'd be good to have around, adds more depth. I don't think another centre half's really what we need, though, if we're bringing in Jamie Hamilton. But and then the other player I've saw shouted about, you pronounce his name better than mine, better than I do, sorry. Is it
Poplatnik?
Okay.
So Poplatnik used to be at Wraith Rovers in Livingston. He was on loan from Livy to Wraith for I think 2 seasons, roughly, something like that. Doesn't score a barrel load of goals, but he scored 2 in the cup final, which obviously won them the cup. But also, what he keeps getting touted with, and I've spoke to a few Wraith Rovers fans, and I'll name Robbie Weir, who we've had on the show before, big Wraith Rovers fan, does a lot of stuff on media as well. He's kind of bigged up Platnick to me in particular, because I've asked him about it. I said, listen, we've been like with Platnick, what do you think? And he said, doesn't score a barrel of goals, but he works incredibly hard. And it's kind of what we need. Like that was what we praised David Moyle for. Doesn't score a barrel of goals, but works incredibly hard.
We need workhorse, and I think the sort of mentality and the type of team which Rankin's trying to build is, it might not be the most beautiful to watch, and it's not going to be technically amazingly gifted, but and what the fans want is give 100%, and nobody's going to criticise. We've got 2 points at the last 2 games. Not been pretty on eye to watch, let's be honest, but the players have given 110%, and that's all we can ask for. So if that's the type of player which is, I've only saw him a very brief amount of times, then another position which we're adding depth to. We've not been very we've not had very good striking options the past few seasons, so we've not been sort of graced with good options within the bench. Obviously the sort of players which we've been bringing on sort of pre-season and sort of the first game to bring on up front was Ryan Oney, who's a 16-year-old boy. Do you know what I mean? I keep saying it's not fair. If it gets to that level where he has of a standard, he can be playing, fair enough, but I think just having that depth and having those options of players that can be on the bench, and us as fans and the manager have confidence in, well, you know what, we are winning this 1-0, or we are getting beat this game. Look at my bench, look who I've got to bring on, and this can change it. And yeah, it's obviously something which us as Accies fans do see quite a lot of time, is we're going to sign X amount of players in this period of time, which it's never a very good look. I think me and my pal Davey Mack were having that conversation, as we'd much rather they just didn't open their mouth and just did it, just like they did with just like they did with him, because now we've been told on Sunday night that, was it Sunday night or Sunday during the day, that on Monday morning, that we're going to sign 3 players. Yeah. Now we're just, as Accies fans, are just looking at our phone, like, we're on edge, like, when are they going to be announced? Who is it? We're trying to do our digging, and you know what, and it's just dragging on. I hope it happens, and I do have confidence that we actually will make signings. Ronnie back at the helm seems to be making good changes, and hopefully another change which will come with Ronnie is bringing in an assistant manager, which we've still not got one in place, but there's been rumours sort of getting touted about. One whilst we've been sitting there, as someone's mentioned a former Accies legend.
Would you like to, you can say
Daz
it.
McKinnon, someone's mentioned that on social media, that he's back at the helm, and it's because of Ronnie's doing that's happened, which sort of goes against what Rankin said to us about the sort of level-headed. Well, you never know. For all we know, he might have
completely.
He might be a very level-headed man now,
but I doubt it.
But listen, I think all the fans used to tout sort of Imre Daz as the sort of next Accies managers. Obviously, we've got Rankin, who I don't think any fan can have any complaints about whatsoever. He's not gave anybody any justification to, and then bringing in someone like Dazzler, that's just going to surely give those players another kick up the arse to go and give 110%. When we go on about the Accies identity and what we've lost over the past years, is just that never give up fight. Not the most technically gifted team, but just making sure you're giving 110%.
And he personifies that.
He personifies that. Very nice word.
Thank you. I get an A in English.
Aye, so actually.
There you go. You would know.
Higher as well. But listen, I think if that's true, in which we're reading social media is, it's just going to give us that other sort of...
It just gives it another push. It does, because... Push. I mean, you're completely right. What we've been missing for the team the last few years is a Darien character, both kind of on and off the pitch, and having him back involved at the club now. It is funny to think that Rank says he's somebody a little bit more level-headed and he brings Daz McKinnon in, right? But I also think we spoke about Dougie and Daz being a management pairing for a long time, and how good they would be. We've seen Dougie do really well with Morton so far. He continues to do well. We wish him all the best at Morton, obviously. And I think having Daz back at the club is perfect, and I mean that genuinely as perfect. He may be inexperienced like Rankin, but because of the type of player he was, and what I can imagine he's like on the bench, on the sidelines as well. I mean, we saw how well they did for the under-18s. Dougie and Daz... Mm-hmm. I think it's only positive. I
think when we've had our interviews with Rankin, and just the whole way in which the fans have been crying out for the past few seasons, and the sort of identity that's been lost with Accies, is we don't care. Obviously we care if we get beat, but it's the manner in which we've been getting beat, and it's the sort of, a lot of fans have been sort of seeing it as, and we've had this discussion many times, if it's just people are turning up, being a footballer, leaving, and that's it. There's not been 110%. There's not been that running yourself into the ground, and there's not been that sort of, nobody to give them that sort of direction, saying, well, actually no, this isn't good enough. Mm-hmm. We've saw it too many times where we've played games and we've got absolutely hammered, and there's been too many excuses. People have really sort of said, oh, we weren't good enough, but this will come back stronger, blah blah blah, just sort of that sort of mantra. And I think the whole identity seems to be slowly but surely coming back together, and along with the performances in which we saw so far, they've not been beautiful and eye, but it's been 110% for the players. They've ran themselves into the ground each time, and with the things going on behind the scenes where we're seeing we're being linked with players, and if we're bringing back Dazzler as our assistant manager, that's surely only going to be a positive, and that's only going to see us, hopefully, we find that identity again.
Completely agree. Well, I think that wraps us up pretty nicely. So guys, thanks again for listening, for watching. As always, link in the description of the G4 podcast studio. Gets me a lovely wee 10% commission as well. It doesn't actually, but it allows you to take your podcast to the next level, or of course start your own. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again soon.